We don't learn from experience. We learn from reflection on experience. Over and over again, you've probably heard people say, oh, I learned from experience, or we learn from experience. Well, it turns out we don't learn from experience. This is a quote from a philosopher, a scholar named John Dewey. For those of you keeping score at home, nobody can find that quote anymore. But it's been quoted enough times with John Dewey as the person that said it that we're just going to pretend for the moment that he said it. And he said, we don't learn from experience, we learn from reflection on experience. Think about it. One of the things that I remember, there was a time when I was a foolish young person and I was trying to figure out as a 13-year-old how to talk to girls. And I remember thinking about how all of these different things that I was supposed to learn. And just like every 13-year-old boy, I was learning the wrong things. I was thinking that, oh no, I should have said this instead of saying that. No. All that reflecting on experience, all that kind of experience didn't do me any good because I wasn't reflecting well. I was just ignorant. So what I needed to do was to be able to figure out a way to reflect with. So oftentimes, the best leaders are those who spend time reading, talking to others, finding ways to get input, and then reflecting on it. One of the things that I've found in my own experience is that I learn best not just from reflecting on experience, but from reflecting on experiences that didn't go well. Almost every leader will find times that there's something where they intended for one thing to happen and they did all the right things, they did all the right planning, they did all the right thing, and then it came time for the thing to happen and it just went absolutely not the way you expected. What do you do in that moment? Chris Argyris will tell you that the bad leaders, the leaders that are never going to improve, what do? They just kind of shake their head and move on, and they learn nothing from that experience. You just paid dearly for it. You might as well learn from it. So what can you do about it? Well, you can reflect on it by writing in a journal. You can meet with somebody, have a mentor, talk to them about it. One of the things that we're going to look at together is what's called the left-hand column exercise, where you write out what happened in an event, and on the right side you write directly observable data. In the middle column, you write what you interpreted by that happening. And in the left-hand column, you write about what your assumptions were, so that you can take apart what happened and figure out in the moment where it was that you were thinking things that didn't go out the way you expected. Let me give you an example. This is one of the ones that I use in a right-hand column exercise or left-hand column exercise. I was teaching a seminar at one point where, as a professor, I was assigned with another professor from another school, and we were teaching young professors how to use the internet in teaching. And at one point, I was in the middle of just preparing for a lecture, and I turned to the staff person that was preparing for us, and I said something to her. And she looked at me and she burst into tears and she said, "You always do this to me," and she ran out of the room. Can we agree up front that that was not the outcome that I was looking for? That was not what I had hoped would happen. Now, we spent some time debriefing with her. We talked about what had happened, and it would have been very easy for me to say, well, okay, let's just chalk that up and move on. But I couldn't get it out of my system. And so I went home, and after that had happened, I spent hours, probably 2-3 hours, writing up a long, detailed version of that left-hand column exercise. It went to 8 pages of just my single-spaced, this is what I said, this is what I interpreted that to mean, and this is what the assumption was. And out of that, I learned a great deal. But it didn't stop there. What I then did is I sent a copy of it to my co-teacher, the person that was working with me, who had worked with this same staff person who was so upset. And I asked her, is this your experience of what happened in that moment? And she said, yes, the directly observable data, the stuff on the right-hand column, that was accurate. And she then suggested that maybe there were some other things that I had to learn. And we talked on the phone, and I learned a whole another layer of stuff from it. And it was great. But then I did one other thing. I have a friend who was at the time head of our Doctor of Ministry, or our field ed program. And she had a couple of very experienced field ed professors that were coming in to talk to her. And so I said, can I give it to the 3 of you? And so I gave it to these really experienced pastors. And I said to them, what do you think I have to learn from this? And they came back with a whole nother range of stuff that was actually really disappointing to me, because they brought up all sorts of stuff that I thought I had solved. I thought, well, at least this is what I know. I've already solved this problem. Nope. They brought up a whole nother range of stuff. And what it did is it allowed me to say, okay, what I thought was already taken care of, I've got to work on. And what I did is then I started meeting with my friend who I'd asked to read this, and I said, okay, I want you to work on this with me. And we talked about it together. But all of that happened because I recognized that I was not going to learn just from experience. It was from the reflection on experience and the quality of the reflection on experience. We don't learn from experience. We learn from reflection on experience.